Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a Watercolour Wednesday. Well, it'll be a Watercolour Wednesday crossed with the tag time because I've taken a sheet of this Goldine Studio Pad watercolour paper, which I'm always listing in the ingredients below, and torn it into 6 pieces that are essentially tag sized. They are 8 centimetres by 16, which is about 3 inches by not quite 6.5. So they're sort of tag sized. I'm thinking I might do a trio of them today and save another trio for another day. Anyone who follows me on my other Instagram account, Bohemian Home, where you can get glimpses of my garden, the nature I'm surrounded by, my winter walks, will have seen some fairly spectacular sunrise photos lately, from the exceptionally vivid to the very, very delicate. And I just thought I'd quite like to do something of that sort here. So I've given the paints a bit of a spritz. I've given my papers a bit of a spritz. These are my art to basic handmade watercolours. The Glorious Meta, who partly from Denmark, partly from Italy these days. And yeah, I'm gonna put some pinks down, which I know is an unusual state of affairs for me here, but that's what the sky has been doing. I'm going to stick to keeping the base of the paper probably white-ish. I'll add shadows, but for now all I want is to put in some of the colours that I've been experiencing, and they'll all hopefully be slightly different. So on this one I might even start with a different shade. I'll list the colours used down below, but do visit the Art to Basic website because there are glorious colours of all kinds there, some including bits of glitter and glorious things like that. But this is just allowing some of these sunrise skies to appear on the paper here. I might even dip in. There wasn't any blue. These are purely impressionistic versions of what I saw. I'm not trying to accurately recreate anything at the moment. I just want to let the paint move on the tag. Let's let this come all the way up here. So the pigment will move into any areas that are wet. So that's the thing to bear in mind with watercolour. It will move to where moisture is. There were extraordinary cloud formations as well on one of the days. So I might just do a little bit of work with the paper towel to create a bit of a texture on one or two of these. I might take this one just a little further down. I'm thinking mostly sky, but then if I want to come into the foreground with maybe some hedgerow flowers, which at the moment is my plan, let's take another little journey into the blue, I think, but I might go with a cooler blue this time. I'm not naming these as I go because I don't have the names in my brain just ready to go of what I've got in the pan here. They are written on the side, but as you can see, I can't access the side at the moment because I'm busy painting. So you'll just have to go with what turns up in the description. That cool blue, when I put it down, I already had some pinks on the brush, so that's why it's gone to an immediate sort of purple. I'm very happy to have these striation lines here. I'm not trying to get a flat wash, trying to let that sense of cloud structures and formulations work for me. Slight interruption to proceedings there, but that's a good chance for me to go away and let these dry a little bit. So on one of these I've got the paper one way up, and on the other it's the textured way up. So that is creating a little bit of difference. This is the smooth side. These are the not smooth sides. So if I just turn those so that we get to there, and I think what I would like to do is put a little bit of sort of snowy shadow into place. So I'm going to use this very soft lavender blue and just let it roll into the floor here, into the ground. Snow shadows, I was noticing as I was walking around yesterday, definitely have a purple tinge to them as often as not. So let's just let that be what it is. Watercolours will always dry paler than they go on, so just bear that in mind as well, that you'll get a variation in colour like so. I might just put just a touch of watery spatter into those skies just to create some additional texture, because I think that's going to be pretty. Going to let those dry and we'll come back and add some stamping, a little bit more colour. Okay. These are now dry, so you could obviously go on to do some sketching or painting over the top of these freehand, but given I've got stamps of some of my sketches already ready to go, these 3 winter ones from last year, the year before, can't remember, all had versions of themselves that are in a tiny scale, so I'm thinking they might be quite good to use. I've also got a couple of the Tim Holtz ones out. I'm thinking this scabby tree might be gorgeous on here. Also these winter watercolours, maybe just to add some extra texture or hedgerow stamping down at the front. So yeah, I think I might kick off with the scabby tree, because actually both these trees are lovely. I like how imperfect they are and that sort of winter feeling at this time of year. I think what I might start with is Stormy Sky. I've grabbed that out just because as you stamp into the background, something paler will recede and give you depth. As you come into the foreground, let your colours be stronger, more intense, and that will build a kind of depth and dimension in what you're doing. Just going to grab that. So I'm thinking to start with a fairly pale stamping, and Stormy Sky might be quite nice for that. I might even, even paler would be to use Stormy Sky in the Oxide version. Maybe, so many choices. Maybe I should try a weathered wood. Not sure I've ever stamped in weathered wood Oxide. So I'm not going all the way down to the bottom of this trunk. I don't really want the whole of that. I think I'm gonna try putting that there, see what I get. That's quite good, isn't it? I'm happy with it coming down into the front here a little bit. Might put in a little bit of the Stormy Sky on this one just to give ourselves a little bit of variation. And I could also choose, of course, to soften that with a spritz of water, but I think for now what I might do is just get myself a couple of those trees. That's ended up much softer because I didn't press down. Not to worry, we're building layers. I'm going to take off a bit more tree trunk because I want it slightly shorter. There we go. So that's a nice soft one. So that is creating a background sort of look. If I give it a spritz of water, it's going to soften all of them, which might be quite a nice thing to do. And then we can bring things into the foreground. There we go. Quite enjoying that. And because I'm using Oxide/inks, if I do want to reduce these stems a little bit down there, that's as simple as giving them a little bit of water and lifting the ink away. Even a little bit of moist paper towel will help with that. It's watercolour paper, so they're not going to lift maybe quite as well as they might on some card. That's quite a good starting place for that card. If I'm going to put something in the foreground, then that's fine. Because that's going to give me that extra little bit of cover, as it were. So let's this time give that a spritz in advance, given I do like the spritzy look, and put it maybe here. I think we might go for a secondary stamping and let that be there. Yeah, just the two of them. That's nice. I'm going to go Stormy Sky for this. I'm going to put it onto the wet stamp because that'll give me a different kind of a look. Another little spritz. Let's go for that maybe there. The Stormy Sky, I'm really interested that the Stormy Sky Oxide seems to be gentler, as it were, than the Weathered Wood one. I'm just going to pull off some of that Weathered Wood because it's a bit too in your face for me. That's working better for me there, that kind of background look. I might try to lift some of that tree trunk with my water brush. There we go. That's a little bit less in your face, isn't it, I think? But as I say, I can do some foreground stamping that's just going to change that a little bit. I'm going to go back in with the Stormy Sky because I'm quite enjoying that. In fact, I might go so far as to put a Stormy Sky stamping somewhere in front of the... Oh, maybe I should do that with the other tree. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Let's give that... See, that one's ended up floating in the middle of nowhere. So what I'm going to do is get the other end of the stem and just eyeball it to line that up so that it's not floating in the middle of nowhere, that tree. Good. Okay. It's a art, not a science, this game. There we go. They're quite nice. Now what I'm thinking is I'd quite like this other slightly scabby tree maybe in this Distress Oxide Stormy Sky, and I am going to let that one be a bit taller. I'm going to let it come a little bit further forward, maybe to, I don't want it outside or inside. Let's maybe put one here first so that we can see what we get. Oh, that's beautiful. See how that's given us that dimension? Those are going off into the background. This one's down here in the foreground. Over here, I think I'm going to do it in the Weathered Wood all the way down to the ground. And let it kind of sit over the top of this one that is making me slightly less happy, because that's fine. It's, you know, trees do grow in front of one another and blot one another out. That's quite good. I'm enjoying that. Again, I'm going to soften that shadow, let it spread out a little bit. That works well. So again, working in multiples, you can see the advantage here of working in multiples, because what it's giving me is, if I don't like something, I might just drop down to a pair of snowy landscapes. Going to pop that, leaning slightly, well actually I can't lean too far because I want the ground to look good. Let's pop that there. Yeah, another one in the foreground. That's good. And again, I'm just going to open out this shadow here into my other shadowy parts of the snow. That's good. And then very softly going to take another tree into the background here, but without such a long trunk. That's going to be there on the horizon. Nice. Let's have another Distress Oxide. Very soft, so a little spritz of that. Let's pop that in the background. That's good. Sort of part in the background and part not. Might go for another of the... I do like this scabby one. There's something about it being so sort of forlorn and soft and barely there. So let's pop that into the background there. Good. And under these, I can come back with some of my watercolour and create some shadows specifically under here. So these shadows went down randomly. I now have the ability to go back in and add something that's just going to ground the trees in the background and give me a kind of sense of where they are against the snow. Little layers of dimension. Okay. Maybe a little bit under here to just draw the eye in that direction. Gentle, simple, soft. Yeah, I'm gonna spritz this one and see if I can lift it up a little bit. That weathered wood is really quite in your face, isn't it? I had no idea. Don't think I've ever stamped in the weathered wood oxide before. I've used it in backgrounds as kind of splotches and things, but it's really quite a full-on colour. Look at the comparison between that and where I've gone with the Stormy Sky one. Really interesting. So at the moment, these two are working better as a pair. This one feels like a bit of an odd one out. I'm even wondering whether I want to do anything in the foreground. I think maybe I want to leave things pretty much as they are. I'm going to use a little bit of this Stormy Sky. Again, just as a, using this as a paint palette again, just to create a little bit of distance over there and a little bit of distance over there. Knock it back if it's too much. I know what will make me happy next. There's a little bit of snowy spatter, and then I'll be able to see where I'm at. So that's going to be the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleedproof White again. A little spot of water usually helps it just be fluid in a way that's going to get me the kinds of spats I like. And I'll just take that into the background. If I can, yeah, there you go. I've hit a lot of that weathered wood tree just to cover it up a bit. I'm freely admitting it. Not a massive fan of the weathered wood stamping there. There we go. Lots of lovely spatter, and that again has sort of thrown things into the background. So all of that, including the more foregrounded trees, have now gone into the background. So what I might do is just give that a little dry. I've smudged my spatters. That's because of working with not enough space on the craft table, too much going on. So let's get another bit of fresh spatter going down the side of here. There we go, and maybe over that tree, and over there, and over there. Good. So it is snowing against these sunrise skies now. I'm going to dry that and come back and see if I want to do any sort of foreground hedgerow stamping or not. I'm still in two minds about whether to do any foreground stamping or what else to do on these. And it's starting to get dark here. So I think what I'm going to do is leave them to rest overnight and come back and look at them with fresh eyes in the morning and see whether maybe something strikes me as the thing I want to have happen next. And sometimes that's part of the creative process, is allowing ideas to seep. I'm still slightly tempted to revert to a pair and do away with this one over here altogether, but maybe that's cruel. At the very least, this one is a useful one to experiment on. If whatever I decide to do, I'll do it on this one first, and then if I hate it, we're back down to the pair. I'll be back in the morning. Back to the task at hand. I think I've decided I don't want foreground stamping. I love the subtlety of these, and I think that might be it. And I've also decided I don't think I should discard this one, throw it aside. I'm going to see what happens if I try to adjust it. First of all, maybe with a bit of pen work, and then we'll see where we get to. So this is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleedproof White ink and my dip pen. And I'm just going to try to make this stem, this trunk, a little more subtle. Not by trying to sort of go over the top of it. Well, I mean, I am going over the top of it. I don't mean I want to rub it out. I want to give it maybe a sense of snowiness. Brilliant. Great. So you saw that happen. Moving the thing out of the way to try to save it from going into the ink. It went straight into the ink. What I'm sort of wondering about is adding a touch of snowiness to the boughs here. There we go. That's what I was really trying to say, and that's just going to make that tree an altogether subtler presence. It's quite nice with that extra touch of detailing down in the snow as well, so I might do a bit of that down here. Having that shot of white is really quite a nice thing going to keep it quite scribbly, quite understated, but just let it create some extra detailing. And of course, as I said when we started this little game, you could just be doing this from the get-go. A little bit of tree sketching, some simple tree shapes into there. A little bit of snowiness, a little bit of detailing on the ground. Just going to knock that back with my fingertip. I think I want to add in, if I can, a little bit more detailing into that tree. So it was the fuller tree, and it got a spritz that meant it was very, very soft. And so I think I want to try and just aim maybe this little bit right into its middle to recreate a bit of detailing. Yeah, again, it's subtle, but it's there. And then if I increase that there-ness with a bit of white detailing, knock it back. There we go. It's just giving it a bit more interest, since that one is actually technically center stage with its positioning. Quite like that. Might put a bit of white detailing onto this one as well. Yeah, enjoying those now quite a lot. There's just something about that little extra flash of detail that is quite pleasing to the eye. I'll put some under here. And again, softening with the fingertip if it's too much of a broad brush stroke. Cleaning off the dip pen to make sure that stays usable. Might just give this an extra little spatter because lots of that snowiness has sort of sunk in. I want a little bit of extra white spatter in the game. That's nice. And you know what? I'm not even sure I want any words on these. I think the snowy silence kind of speaks for itself. Simplicity is a big word in a complex world. Something to be celebrated, I think. Peace, calm, quiet. I'm gonna give those a quick blast with the heat gun so that that white doesn't get a chance to fade into the background. And I might have a quick little look at adding words, but I think we might be done. What I am thinking might be quite nice is a little tiny touch of a bird flying overhead. So let's see what we've got in the way of a fine pen. Test it on another piece first. Must have a bit of this paper lying around here. There's a bit of mop up. So let's have a look what we can do bird-wise. A simple little V is usually the way. Just get you out of the way. Where do we want them? I'm going to listen in and see where the bird is. That's nice. What about over here? Flying off in that direction, I think. Lucky threesomes. Coming into land, maybe a little higher up. I think that might be where we want to go. So the paper is curving up a little bit. Press that under a book overnight. Something like that will get you back to normal. The other possibility is to give it a little spritz of water on the back, because that moisture will mean that the paper fibres can then bend in the other direction as well. See, I knew there was something bubbling at the back of my brain. This is EAB05, the 5th of my stamp sets ever. when I was doing the word collections, so quote collections on a theme. This is the winter edition, and there's a quote down at the bottom here by Ellen Montgomery, who wrote, Anne of Green Gables, days of clear brilliance, nights with their fire of stars, cold, exquisite winter sunrises, lovely forms of ice, moonlight on birches in a silver thaw. Clearly, I'm going to need to do some moonlight on birches with a birch stencil at some point, but those cold, exquisite winter sunrises, I think I want them in there. There's an extraordinary one here from John Burroughs, who's a brilliant nature writer, and yeah, just art. The knowledge of the man is amazing, and the writing, his writing is that it is the life of the crystal, the architect of the flake, the fire of the frost, the soul of the sunbeam. This crisp winter air is full of it. So I'm wondering about cold, exquisite winter sunrises. I'm wondering about crisp winter air, and I'm wondering about bleak midwinter, although this is really not that bleak, is it now? Let's have a look. The winter sky above. There's a good one. So just little fragments, little tiny fragments, and whether I stamp direct or whether I put them onto another piece of card. Where did that mop-up go that I was testing with? La la. The craft table is not the most organised it's ever been. It might be as simple as doing it in the Stormy sky, which is already present. Let's get one of those. Decided I don't want that one, so I can stamp over that same bit on the other side. Obviously I could mount this on a block. That's very subtle, which might be what we're after. So the winter sky above. Don't need the in, so I'll just trim that off. This appears to be Louisa May Alcott. There we go. The winter sky above. Let's look at that. And then if I decide I like it, if it's somewhere there, it could be stamped direct. It's possible. That's quite in your face, isn't it? It's sort of spoiling the sunrise. Down here. Oh, I don't dislike that. Interesting. Other quotes, please. I'm going to need, again, to go away from the desk, come back and look. Because the words are so perfect, I'm going to go with it. So, winter sunrises on this one. The winter sky above on the middle one. And crisp winter air on the third one. They're just too right not to be part of the work. And I'm not going to edge them. I'm not going to draw around them. I'm going to let them just have their own framing of the cut paper. I was rudely interrupted by an alarm going off on my phone. So yeah, I've stuck down the last one. I think I'm happy with that decision. I will zoom in for a close-up so that you can see those cold, exquisite winter sunrises in more detail, the tiny birds flying away, the beautiful Tim Holtz trees, beautiful, scabby, falling down, heavy with snow. Thank you so much for your company today. If you've enjoyed that, do give me a thumbs up. I will, as always, leave as many ingredients as I can think of in the description below. And I thank you in advance for comments, questions, anything you want to talk about down below in the comments. Without your company, this journey simply wouldn't be the same. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all.